In this video, we will be demonstrating how the portal, which is built and hosted on Magnolia's digital experience platform, can be edited using approved, compliant content coming from Veeva Vault's PromoMats using our integration. So let's bring up Magnolia's digital experience platform. We're going to navigate and open our pages and start to edit one of the pages that belongs to our portal. So let's open one up and take a look at the existing content. Right away, we can see that on our opening banner, the image behind it is not a good one. It doesn't fit with the text and it's quite pixelated. So let's say that we're an author who's tasked with changing this background image. We can open up the components dialog and we'll see all the different capabilities of what content we can change, such as the category title, the title itself, and the paragraph over here. Our job is to change the background image. So we'll move over to that tab and we'll see that we can browse through all the different images in Magnolia's DAM, but as mentioned, we have no certainty that any of these assets have gone through any form of an approval process or that they're ready to be used. So let's not choose one from Magnolia's DAM. Let's instead invoke our Veeva integration. So let's do that by clicking on this radio button, which is going to allow us to tap into Veeva Vault's PromoMats. Here you'll see a list of all the assets that live there, each of them displayed with their title, their status, and their type. When you select one, you can see a thumbnail, so it's very easy to know what you're working with. The status is also very important because this is what's going to tell you what's actually allowed to be used. So let's choose a symbolics banner, which is allowed to be used on our portal. We can choose it and then save the changes in our dialog. Our portal is automatically updated with this asset that we know is approved for use as easily as if this was coming directly from Magnolia's DAM. Not only that, but in order to do this, in order to apply this asset on our Magnolia portal, we did not copy it to Magnolia. This image is being referenced directly from Veeva Vault's PromoMats, which means that whenever the image receives a new version or is edited in Vault, we will automatically get these updates on our page without having to modify it. So that's how we can modify an image. A similar approach can happen for our text assets. So if we scroll down here, you'll recall that one of the types of content that is very important for HCPs is on-demand education. So here is one of the components that will allow us to exemplify the kind of education that exists. So let's modify this. And you'll see that just as before, we have the capability to choose images from Veeva instead of free assets from the DAM. But we can also do the same thing with these text paragraphs. So instead of putting in free text right in this dialog that is not necessarily approved, let's tap into our Veeva Vault's PromoMats and choose one of the text elements that already exists over there. So the educational entry that we were selecting is about thrombosis. So let's scroll down to something that relates to that. I know from looking at Veeva that my 66th entry is indeed about thrombosis. I can pull it right from Veeva's text elements, select it, and once again click Save. And once again, as before, we have pulled an asset that we know is approved, and we are using it directly in our portal with easy to use drag and drop WYSIWYG integration. So now that we've seen how we can pull both images and text from Veeva Vault's PromoMats and use them in our portal to make sure it's being built exclusively with compliant content, let's take a look at how we can safely combine these pieces of information. Here we have a treatment section that shows drug information. For each element, we have a thumbnail, a title, and a paragraph. We could, of course, pull these elements directly from Veeva, as we've seen before. We can pull the image, we can pull a title, we can pull the text. However, when we do that, there's no guarantee that these three elements, even though individually they're compliant, together they create a combination that is not yet necessarily approved. And that's where modular content comes in. A module is a combination of different data elements, such as a thumbnail, a title, and a paragraph, or whatever you may need for your particular scenario. And these elements are approved to be used in conjunction with each other, which means that after you've added them to your portal, you don't necessarily need to go through another layer of approval, which makes your authoring much smoother. So in our dialog, we have the capability to embed these elements individually, which would require another layer of approval, or to go ahead and use a module. And here you can see that our component is actually built using 3 different modules. So all we have to do is select them and save changes, and our whole thing is built automatically. Not only that, but as we said before, nothing from Veeva Vault PromoMats is being copied into Magnolia. It's all being referenced, keeping Veeva Vault's PromoMats as the single source of truth, which means that if one of these modules is modified, it will automatically receive the changes here in our portal. So if we modify this module 0004, for example, in Veeva Vault, so let's take a look at what that would look like. We can go into Veeva Vault, we can log in, and we can go into our modular content. Here is our module 0004 that we saw before. We are going to make a quick modification. So here's the thumbnail that you saw before. We are going to modify it by removing it and adding a brand new image that we've decided to use. So let's choose this other thumbnail for Calibris, click continue, and click save. So I do want to make that change, and I'm going to go back to my portal and refresh it. And when the page loads back up, you'll see that the thumbnail has automatically been modified with the one that we changed in the module. This is because everything that we're pulling from Veeva Vault's PromoMats is by reference. We're keeping it as a single source of truth, and any updates made there are automatically reflected in our portal without us having to make any changes over here. Thank you very much.